The train to Hogwarts pulled away from platform 934, steam curling in the air like the whisper of ancient spells. Inside, Albus Severus Potter sat quietly, the weight of his name heavier than the trunk by his side. His father, Harry, had smiled and said, "You're named after 2 headmasters of Hogwarts. One of them was a Slytherin, and he was the bravest man I ever knew." But even those words couldn't chase away the gnawing doubt in Albus's chest. He wasn't sure which part of his heritage frightened him more, the shadow of his famous father or the legacy of those darker bloodlines. Unlike his brother James, who had an easy charm and a mischievous spirit, Albus was thoughtful, reserved, and perpetually aware of the expectations pressed upon him. As the train sped through the countryside, he sat beside his only true friend, Scorpius Malfoy, son of Draco. Their bond was unusual, unexpected even, given their family histories. But both boys shared the unique burden of legacy. They knew what it meant to be judged before speaking, to be seen not as themselves, but as echoes of someone else. In each other, they found comfort, a shared rebellion against the weight of their surnames. When they arrived at Hogwarts, the castle loomed like a living memory, its towers silhouetted against the dusky sky. The sorting hat ceremony brought a hush over the great hall. When it called out Slytherin for Albus, gasps rose from the crowd. Whispers followed him for days. Harry Potter's son, a Slytherin? But Albus was not ashamed. Conflicted, perhaps, but not ashamed. He knew that courage took many forms, and sometimes it meant walking a path no one expected you to walk. His first year passed with quiet days and shadowed nights. He excelled in potions, but struggled in defense against the dark arts. He often felt eyes on him, professors expecting greatness, students waiting for him to fail. It was during his second year that everything changed. A growing sense of unease began to haunt the halls. Books disappeared from the restricted section. Strange frost formed on the walls despite the warmth of spring. And late at night, whispers floated through the corridors, voices that spoke in forgotten tongues. Deep in the dungeons, Albus stumbled upon a forgotten passage hidden behind a wall that shimmered like water. What began as curiosity soon turned into obsession. The passage led to an underground chamber, older than the school itself. Strange carvings lined the walls, symbols not found in any textbook, and in the center stood a cracked stone mirror. When Albus looked into it, he didn't see himself. He saw his father as a young boy, terrified and alone in the forbidden forest. The image shifted, showing scenes that couldn't have existed. His mother, Ginny, crying over a broken wand, a phoenix flying backward through time, and finally, a black figure cloaked in shadows walking toward the Hogwarts gates. The mirror was no ordinary relic. It wasn't the mirror of Erised, but something darker, older, and tied to an ancient wizarding myth, the Veil of the Forgotten. It whispered to Albus in the dead of night, revealing glimpses of a secret locked away by Dumbledore himself. As the whispers grew stronger, so did Albus's fear that something evil had returned, something that the war hadn't ended, only hidden. Scorpius noticed the change first. His friend grew distant, distracted, caught between dreams and reality. Together they began to research forbidden magic, visiting the restricted section of the library under cover of night. Their search led them to a name long buried, Erevan, Gaunt, a descendant of Voldemort who had vanished before the Battle of Hogwarts. Whispers said he had escaped into the shadows, carrying with him a dark prophecy meant for the next Potter. A prophecy that spoke of the heir of scars and the bearer of dual names. And Albus fit it far too well. In their third year, Albus and Scorpius uncovered the truth. Erevan had sealed part of his power into the Veil of the Forgotten, waiting for someone with the blood of the Chosen One to unlock it. Albus was the key. The chamber had been waiting for him, calling to his bloodline. The more he tried to resist, the stronger the pull became. He dreamed of Erevan walking through fire, speaking riddles in Parseltongue, commanding shadows to rise. Haunted by dreams and pursued by whispers, Albus faced a terrible choice: run from the legacy or embrace it to stop a rising darkness. With Scorpius by his side and guided by an unlikely ally, Professor Longbottom, who had grown into a wise and brave teacher, Albus began to forge his own path. Longbottom revealed secrets of his own that Dumbledore had entrusted him, with a sealed scroll to be opened only if a Potter is claimed by the past once more. The scroll revealed the full prophecy: a vision of Hogwarts consumed by shadows, a serpent without eyes rising from the lake, and a student who would hold the fate of magic in his hands. Every sign pointed to Albus, but it also spoke of redemption, of a choice that would either doom or deliver the magical world. As events spiraled, the Ministry of Magic took notice. Aurors patrolled the grounds. Rumors of a new dark order spread across Wizarding Britain. The tension in the air was palpable. The final confrontation came not in a battle of wands, but a battle of will. In the underground chamber, Erevan's spirit emerged from the veil, offering Albus power, understanding, and the chance to rewrite his story. But Albus chose differently. He saw through the lies, the illusions, and shattered the mirror, breaking the ancient link and sealing the darkness for good. But the chamber didn't vanish. It sighed, as though some ancient entity acknowledged his decision, and then fell silent. When he returned to the surface, everything had changed. Not in the world, but within him. He no longer feared the whispers or the weight of his name. He was Albus Severus Potter, not just a son of a hero, but a boy who had faced shadows and walked back into the light. Students no longer saw him as an extension of his father, but as someone who had forged his own legend. Even the portraits in the headmaster's office seemed to nod in quiet respect. And so, the next generation of Hogwarts began not with fanfare, but with quiet bravery, the kind that shapes legends in ways the world never sees. Albus's journey was far from over, but for the first time, it was his journey, and his alone. Continued, in the weeks following Erevan's defeat, Hogwarts struggled to return to normalcy. Professors watched Albus carefully, wondering whether his connection to ancient magic was truly severed. But Albus was focused. He spent more time in the library than ever before, not out of fear or obsession, but a hunger to understand the magical world on his own terms. Scorpius, meanwhile, had taken up divination with a strange passion, interpreting tea leaves like war maps, insisting he'd seen visions of something else brewing far beyond Britain's borders. Albus laughed it off, but deep down he felt it. 2. Their journey wasn't finished. A letter arrived via owl post, bearing the crest of Durmstrang Institute. Inside was a formal invitation. Albus Potter and Scorpius Malfoy were invited to attend an inter-school magical symposium, a chance to meet magical students from across Europe to build bridges after the post-Voldemort divisions. Headmistress McGonagall had approved it personally. Albus was hesitant, but Longbottom encouraged him to go. "Sometimes," he said, "healing comes not from staying, but from seeing the world anew." Durmstrang was nothing like Hogwarts. Its cold stone halls echoed with silence, and magic felt more like discipline than wonder. But Albus found allies among the stern faces. He met Ilari Koskinen, a brilliant Finnish duelist with a flair for elemental charms, and Emily Vranova, a sharp-eyed bohemian witch who challenged every assumption he held. Together, they uncovered strange symbols etched into the symposium's walls, ancient scripts identical to those from the Chamber of the Forgotten. It couldn't be coincidence. Erevan's influence had reached further than anyone realized. In the icy caverns beneath Durmstrang, the trio found the remnants of a failed ritual designed to harness magical bloodlines through ancient contracts. Albus realized with horror, Erevan had not acted alone. There had been others, scattered across magical Europe, waiting, watching. The Veil of the Forgotten was just one gate. There were more, and someone was trying to reopen them. When Albus returned to Hogwarts, he brought with him more than knowledge. He brought warnings. The Ministry, still reeling from the near catastrophe, begrudgingly listened. A new task force was formed, and for the first time in wizarding history, students were given seats in its advisory council. Albus, Scorpius, Ilari, and Emily were among them. The world was changing, and the youth were being called to shape it. As his 5th year approached, Albus knew the days of classroom spells and Quidditch rivalries were behind him. A greater challenge loomed, not of darkness, but of division, distrust, and the hidden wounds left by a war thought to be long over. He wasn't the chosen one. He wasn't his father, but he was something new, and that was enough. Albus Potter sat on the Hogwarts Express, staring out the window, watching the countryside blur into the distance. It was an exciting and daunting journey all at once. His heart raced with anticipation and dread. This would be his first year at Hogwarts, a place he had heard about for as long as he could remember, a place his father had gone to, a place where his father had been a legend. Albus could already feel the weight of that legacy pressing down on him even before he set foot in the castle. His father, Harry Potter, had been a hero, the boy who lived, the one who had defeated Lord Voldemort. Now Harry was a respected figure, the head of magical law enforcement at the Ministry. Albus loved his father, of course, but sometimes he wondered if he was destined to be nothing more than a shadow of him. The thought clung to him as the train chugged forward, the noise around him muffled by his thoughts. "Albus, don't be such a downer. It's Hogwarts." James, his older brother, said with a grin, leaning over the seat to poke him. James was everything Albus wasn't. Confident, outgoing, and always ready to make a joke. But it was his easy confidence that made Albus feel like an outsider, even in his own family. Lily, his younger sister, sat quietly beside him, occasionally glancing at her reflection in the glass. She seemed as excited as James, but there was something in her eyes that told Albus she was also aware of the expectations that lay ahead for them. "Are you nervous?" Lily asked, her voice soft. "A little," Albus admitted, offering a faint smile. He had hoped she hadn't noticed, but his younger sister had always been perceptive. "Just, first-year jitters." "You'll be fine," Lily said, her smile warm and reassuring. The journey felt long, and as the train drew closer to Hogsmeade, the air seemed to thicken with the excitement of the other first years. They disembarked and made their way to the boats, the familiar Hogwarts castle looming in the distance. Albus's heart fluttered in his chest, and for a moment the nerves seemed to fade as awe took their place. Upon arriving at the castle, Albus followed the other first years into the Great Hall. The room was alive with magic. The enchanted ceiling reflected the night sky, and the floating candles added a sense of wonder to the moment. The 4 long tables were filled with students who greeted each other in hushed tones, already familiar with the magic of Hogwarts. Albus swallowed hard, knowing his moment was next. The Sorting Hat ceremony was upon them. Albus could feel the eyes of the entire hall on him as he approached the stool. He had heard stories, of course, how the hat would read your mind, your deepest desires, your fears. The thought made him feel exposed, vulnerable. He was trying to ignore the sense of dread building inside of him when the hat finally touched his head. A voice echoed in his mind, deep and resonant. "Ah, you're different, aren't you? A Potter with such ambition. Yes, I see you don't want to follow in anyone's footsteps, but you do have courage. A lot of it, in fact. But there's something else, something more ambitious. Slytherin, perhaps?" Albus's breath hitched. The room was silent, waiting for the verdict. The hat shifted slightly as though thinking. "But your heart, It's full of resolve. The courage of a Gryffindor lies within you as well. A tough choice." There was a long pause, and the moment felt eternal. "Slytherin!" the Sorting Hat finally declared, its voice booming across the hall. Albus's stomach dropped, and for a moment he thought he might faint. He had hoped, no, expected, to be sorted into Gryffindor. His father had been in Gryffindor, and James would surely be too. He looked at the Slytherin table where a few students stared at him with curious eyes. Some were already whispering among themselves. He sat at the Slytherin table, his heart still pounding. There were a few people who nodded at him in welcome, though some seemed hesitant. His eyes wandered to Scorpius Malfoy, Draco Malfoy's son, who was sitting near the middle of the table. Scorpius smiled, but it was the kind of smile that suggested he wasn't entirely sure how to approach Albus. They had both been sorted, into Slytherin after all, and neither of them knew quite what to expect from the other. The first few days at Hogwarts were a whirlwind of new faces, classes, and strange magical occurrences that Albus couldn't entirely wrap his mind around. He felt the weight of his last name like a heavy cloak. The other students had heard of him. How could they not? Harry Potter was a household name, and even though he was just a first year, it felt like every move he made was being watched, analyzed. His classes were challenging but exciting. Defense against the dark arts was exhilarating. His father had been a hero in the war against dark forces, and now Albus was learning how to defend himself against them. It was in this class, however, that he began to feel the sting of his father's legacy. His professor, Professor Gilderoy Lockhart, who had somehow secured a teaching position despite his well-known history, made casual remarks about Harry's past exploits, praising Albus for carrying on the family tradition. The words were meant to be encouraging, but Albus felt more like he was in a cage, trying to live up to something impossible. It was in the library, however, that Albus began to feel a strange sense of freedom. While most of the other students were socializing and getting to know one another, Albus found solace among the stacks of books. He stumbled upon an old, forgotten section of the library, tucked away in a dark corner. It was here that he discovered a dusty tome with an unfamiliar symbol, a serpent intertwined with a lion. The book was ancient, its pages yellowed with age. Curiosity piqued. Albus opened the book to find it filled with obscure magical lore and forgotten spells. As he flipped through the pages, one entry caught his eye. The story of the serpent's heart, a powerful and mysterious magical artifact believed to amplify one's true magical potential. It was said to be hidden deep within Hogwarts, protected by powerful enchantments. Intrigued, Albus read more. The artifact, according to the book, had the potential to unleash great power, but only if one could unlock its secrets. Albus couldn't help but share his discovery with Scorpius. The two became fast friends, bonding over their shared experience of growing up with famous fathers. Albus had always known the Malfoys, but he had never quite gotten to know Scorpius. But now, they found themselves delving deeper into the mystery of the serpent's heart, each clue leading them further into the hidden history of Hogwarts. As the weeks passed, their investigation into the artifact became more intense. They spent hours in the library, scouring ancient texts, hoping to find a lead. Their nights were filled with whispered conversations, plans to sneak around the castle after hours, and excitement over each new discovery. But they weren't alone. In their search, Albus noticed that other students, especially some from Gryffindor and Ravenclaw, had started to follow their movements. It seemed they too were drawn to the mystery. Albus had hoped that their investigation would remain secret, but the pull of the artifact was too strong. The group that formed to uncover the serpent's heart consisted of Albus, Scorpius, and a few trusted friends. Rose Weasley, his cousin, who was as brilliant as she was headstrong, and a quiet but brilliant Ravenclaw named Ivy Blackwell. They began to piece together the secrets hidden within Hogwarts walls, following clues and navigating magical traps. It became a thrilling adventure, and with each discovery, Albus felt a strange sense of purpose building inside him. But as they grew closer to the artifact, the danger escalated. Dark forces seemed to be aware of their efforts, and sinister figures lurked in the shadows. The closer they got to finding the serpent's heart, the more perilous their journey became. On a crisp autumn evening, they found themselves standing in front of a hidden door deep within the castle's lower chambers. The door shimmered with protective magic, and Albus could feel the ancient power humming in the air. This was it, the final piece of the puzzle. "This is it," Albus said, his voice steady though his heart raced. "This is where we find the serpent's heart." As the door creaked open, a dim light filtered through, revealing a chamber filled with intricate carvings and symbols. And in the center of the room, resting upon a pedestal, was the serpent's heart, a shimmering gemstone, dark and alluring. But as Albus stepped forward, he felt a familiar presence, one he hadn't expected. His father's voice echoed in his mind, warning him of the dangers that lay ahead. Albus had always known that Harry had faced dark forces before, but now, standing here, Albus understood the true cost of such power. It was only when Albus realized that the artifact's true power wasn't about magic. It was about understanding himself, that he could finally unlock its magic. The serpent's heart glowed brightly, and in that moment, Albus knew that the legacy he had been so afraid of wasn't a burden, it was a gift. With the serpent's heart safely hidden away, Albus Potter had begun to find his own path. He was no longer just the son of Harry Potter. He was Albus Potter, a young wizard ready to make his own mark on the world.